Tension and crisis. What the world needs now is the removal of fear and the renewal of hope. We are going through one of the greatest periods of tension since the end of the Cold War. This particular phase of tension and crisis began on 11 September 2001. On that day, an attack by foreign terrorists took place on the World Trade Center in New York and the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., as well as a foiled attack on the White House. It was an attack not only on America, but on American power represented by the Pentagon and the White House, and the major industrial nations of the world through the attack on the World Trade Center. That terrible, dramatic attack took America and the entire world by surprise and shock. The world has been in a state of shock ever since, but I suggest it should not have taken the world so much by surprise. It was one of the most daring, most audacious, and most organized of many such attacks on the Western world. That attack resulted in the attack of Afghanistan, in which more ordinary, innocent citizens of Afghanistan were killed than were killed in the World Trade Center on 11 September. This was followed by the American and British attack on Iraq and the continued occupation in which hundreds of thousands of innocent Iraqi citizens have also lost their lives. The American, British, and other governments have not recognized that the attack on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon and the foiled attack on the White House have a cause. It is the effect of a cause. In other words, it is karmic. It is a result of the law of karma and the law of cause and effect. The cause is complex, but put very simply, it is the extreme difference in living standards between the developed Western world and the developing world. 1/3 of the world, mainly America, Europe, Japan, Australia, and Canada, usurp and greatly waste 3/4 of the world's food and some 83% of all other resources. The developing world, the so-called third world, has to make do with the rest, distributed among 2/3 of the world's population. This division is the result of greed, lack of compassion, and complacency. It is unfair and extraordinarily dangerous for the security of the world. The developing world will not forever put up with this state of affairs. They will demand their fair share of the world's resources. These first steps in that direction were the attacks on America. The greatest danger to the world was not the existence of Iraq, with its dictatorship, nor it is Iran with its fundamentalist Muslim attitudes and lack of respect for America, or North Korea with its military potential. The greatest danger it is the discrepancy in living standards between the developed and the developing world. Humanity is taking a long time to understand these problems, the true problems that beset it today. But unless it understands these problems, there will be no hope for the future of the world. The tensions existing in this discrepancy of living standards have within them the seeds of a third world war. That war will be nuclear and would destroy all life on the planet. I am a very optimistic person by nature. I tend to look on the brighter side of life, and I am not too depressed by gloomy thoughts of the world's destruction. But if I did not know what I do know, I would have little hope that humanity could survive, little hope that in time humanity would awaken to the real problems that beset it and begin to change. I am very doubtful that on our own we could do that. Fortunately, I do not believe that we are alone, without help, without guidance. There was there has stood behind humanity from the earliest days of its existence a group of men of extraordinary insight and wisdom, called the Masters of Wisdom, the spiritual hierarchy of our planet. The Masters of the spiritual hierarchy. This group of men have gone ahead of us in evolution. They have come to a point where they need no further incarnational experience on Earth, but nevertheless remain to act as a kind of inner government of the world. The Masters are the custodians of the plan of evolution that is driving humanity forward and upward, whether we are aware of it or not. They have brought humanity from the stage of early animal man and woman to the point where we are today, guiding, protecting, and stimulating the evolutionary advance of all people. Sometimes they have worked more openly, but for the last 98,000 years, with very few exceptions, they had lived in the remote mountain and desert areas of the world, such as the Himalaya, the Andes, the Rockies, the Carpathians, the Urals, and the Gobi Desert and other deserts. From these mountain and desert areas, working mainly through their disciples, men and women of the world. They have guided humanity along the evolutionary path with their love and wisdom. For over 500 years, the Masters have known that sooner or later they would be required to come back into the everyday world, known to us for what they are. This pertains to their own evolution, quite separate from the human evolution. The only question was when humanity would be ready for the return to the everyday world of such spiritual giants. Until relatively recently, it was thought it could probably be 1,200 or 1,300 years yet before we would be ready to receive men of that kind of spiritual potency in our everyday world. But in June 1945, at the end of the Second World War, Maitreya, the head and leader of that group of perfected men, announced his decision to return at the earliest possible moment into the world, along with a large number of his group. Maitreya said that he would come when a measure of peace had been established in the world, when the energy we call God will, which the Masters see as the lowest aspect of love, was manifesting and leading to the establishment of correct human relationships, and when the religious and political groups were putting their houses in order. These conditions did not have to be perfectly met, but when our minds were at least moving in these directions, Maitreya said that he would come without fail at the earliest possible moment. The coming of Maitreya was foretold 2,600 years ago by Gautama Buddha, who said that at this time would come another great teacher, a Buddha like himself by the name Maitreya, who, by dint of his colossal spiritual stature, would galvanize and inspire humanity to create a brilliant golden civilization based, as he put it, on righteousness and truth. Every manifestation of a teacher that has occurred from the earliest times has been a disciple overshadowed by the teacher. Historically, they have known as Hercules, Hermes, Brahma, Mithra, Vipasa, Confucius, Zoroaster, Krishna, Sankaracharya, Gautama, Jesus, and Mohammed. These had all been disciples overshadowed by the teacher himself, just as the Buddha worked through the Prince Gautama, so in Palestine Maitreya worked through Jesus of Nazareth. Maitreya is the embodiment of what we call Christ's principle, the energy of love. Maitreya is so advanced, so pure, he can embody in his own being, and not simply channel, the energy of love, the second aspect of God. Through Jesus he showed that love of God and its perfection in a man for the first time, just as through the Prince Gautama, the Buddha showed the wisdom aspect of God and its perfection in a man for the first time. Now, for the first time in history, the teacher has come into the world himself. Maitreya is the head and leader of his group of disciples, the masters of wisdom, and holds the office of world teacher. He has held this office for the last 2,000 years, appearing through Jesus, and will be the world teacher for this coming age, the age of Aquarius, which is now beginning and will last about 2,350 to 2,500 years. For thousands of years, Maitreya has lived in retreat in the high Himalaya, but Maitreya arrived in the everyday world. He has never been away from the world. On 19 July 1977, on 8 July, Maitreya descended from his mountain retreat in a self-made body, constructed specially for this mission in the world. This body allows him to live at our level of existence and at the same time be sensitive enough to bring in his consciousness as the world teacher. Maitreya stayed on the plains of Pakistan for some days to acclimatize that body, and on 19 July came by plane to London, England. He has made the Asian community of London what he called his points of focus in the modern world.